Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fumey, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands. On today's show, we have Ron Holt from Pink Zebra Moving. Ron, welcome to the show.
Frank, I'm so glad to be here. It's a true honor to talk to you. I can't wait to talk a little franchising with you.
Awesome. Well, let's do that. Let's kick things off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Pink Zebra does?
Yeah, so on the surface, we're a moving company, and there's no shortage of those. There's 7,000 moving companies right now across the country, several franchise brands even. But when you really dig deeper into who we are, you'll find that we actually are a little bit different. We're not your normal moving company. We actually, like our slogan says, we make moving fun. And I'll tell you, I'll tease you right now. I'll tell you more later, but we do a lot of things to literally put on a show for our customers. And that's what we've chosen to use as our niche to disrupt this industry that now dates back more than 100 years. When you look at industries across it's 2023. It's very hard to disrupt an industry nowadays without formulating some kind of unique code or something, some kind of cool software. We're going old fashioned. We're just going to provide a much better, more positive customer experience. And we're going to disrupt this industry. We're on a good pace right now. And that's our play. Pink Zebra Moving, we make it fun.
Nice. Well, we all know that when we do move, it's usually a very stressful experience for us as a customer. And also you have the challenge of this 4,000 franchisors in the United States. So there's a lot of opportunities for people to choose from. So tell us a little bit about this Pink Zebra experience that makes it fun. Go right ahead. Go at it.
Yeah. So if you know, the two words that we use here all the time around this office across our network are customer experience. And so a lot of people don't really know what that means. A lot of people heard it, but they kind of confuse that and think, well, that's also just like a deviation of customer service. Customer service is very reactive. Problem happens, manager fixes it. That's customer service. Customer experience is more proactive. You're doing things to get in front of things, so there's still going to be fires. There's still going to be issues. Customer service is still going to have its place in that role. But customer experience is really meant to build a relationship, to engage with your customers as much as you can, and create, again, that really positive relationship. So what do we do? How can a moving company build relationships? Unfortunately, most moving companies across this country, even some of the larger ones, have these really large tickets, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 tickets. And it's a very transactional experience that the customer lives through. They may not even remember the name of the moving company they hired. It's just something they got to do. Let's get it over with. Here's my $4,000. Get out of here. I'll do it again in 6 years. So with that type of transaction, the opportunity for really big issues to arise are super high because you don't know who these people are. And so before, during, and after a move, Pink Zebra Moving works really hard to engage with our customers. We talk to them, probably in some cases even over-talk to them as much as we possibly can. I'll give you some examples. Before the move even happens, most moving companies in this country say, hey, booked a job, let's go move it 2 weeks from now. So there's like 14 days of just a waiting period. Well, during that waiting period, anxiety just builds and builds and builds because the customer's not sure exactly what to expect because the moving company hasn't reached out to say, this is what you should expect. We talk, we send video messages, we send emails, we send text messages, we call people, we send some practical things like how to pack glassware, for instance, and funny things, that really utilize, the humor side of what we do. But the whole thing we're doing is just reassuring the customer that the good things are going to happen. And as simple as that sounds, it really goes a long way because you don't want a customer to think, are they going to show up? What's going to happen when they do show up? These are questions that should be answered before you spend $3,000, with a company. The highlight of what we do, kind of the trademark of our business and brand, is the free dinner offer. Everybody talks about it. It's such an easy thing to do. Every moving company in the country honestly could do it if they wanted to, but no one yet has, as far as I understand. We provide a free meal the night before a move. We call our customers. We say, hey, we've got a surprise for you. We're feeding you tonight. don't worry about washing dishes don't worry about pulling those dishes out anymore. We're going to take care of that. What do you want? And so that simple little thing, it costs us 30, 40, $50 at a time, has created so many crazy emotions. We've had people crying, thanking us for that. We've had other people tell us that we were the hero, we were the savior of the night because they didn't know exactly what they were going to do for food. And so all of those things are happening before we even show up to do the move. And so we're already on their good side. We're their best friend. And then the moving trucks show up, even more things, fun things happen. That's our opportunity to really, truly put on a show. So when we get there, we do a quick walkthrough. Our team lead always does that and just make sure we're going to do what we thought we were going to do. They meet the customers, they introduce the employees to the customers. All those are really simple things. But the big thing is we always put on an exercise routine after all of those introductions. It's a 2-minute long exercise routine, push-ups, running in place, whatever, jumping jacks in some cases, whatever the guys want to do. And we're silly. We try to have some fun. We just want to get the day started in a fun way so that we can have conversations throughout the day with these people. Otherwise, they become strangers. If you've ever hired a moving company before, you may remember that it can be very awkward, silent, because and you don't know who these people are. Those exercise routines get people talking, The other thing we do during a move day, we play music, not in necessarily every room, but we try to put the speakers in strategic places. And so it's all fun, sing-along songs. We call it a happy playlist. And that, again, very simple thing, creates opportunities for customers to interact with our employees, our movers, which is something you want. You don't want these folks, again, to be strangers with each other for 8 hours or whatever it might be. All sorts of other fun things, but I'll try to be quick here. The other thing we're kind of known for, I mentioned the free meal offers, our trademark. Our second closest thing that we're most known for is what we call a surprise box. After we're finished moving, we leave behind a box with, of course, pink ribbon on it. And inside of it, we have goodies, chocolates, candies, whatever. Inside there's, it's presented in a fun way, personalized note to the customer, and a personalized gift as well. So that's where the real fun starts. If we know that this customer is a big Notre Dame fan or a big Chicago Bear fan or whatever it is, then we're going to use that to our advantage. Maybe we go out and buy a Chicago Bear koozie or a Notre Dame T-shirt, or something like that. And inside the note, we say, hey, go Irish or whatever, go Bears. It's simple. They could go buy their own T-shirts or koozies. We know that. But the fact that we said, hey, we know you, customer, and we know you so much, we're going to say go Bears, even though we like the Packers. It goes a long way. And we're trying to just, again, step by step, build a relationship with our customers so that, when it's all said and done, when we pull off, they go, holy cow, I can't believe they did that. That's our goal with every single move, is to make a customer say those 2 words, holy cow. So that's at least a little bit of a tease of what we do. I could go on and on. We got so many great stories, across the network already. But it's been a fun ride.
That's amazing. You're really not in the moving business. You're really in the peace of mind business is how I look at it, because as I said earlier, it is stressful to move, and you've eliminated that one problem for people is the stress leading up to it. Especially, I love the meal the night before, right? Anybody can do it. Anybody can do what you do, but it's the why that changes everything. And I love that. The other thing that you have done that other companies don't do is you recognize this is not a transactional business, that customers, I would imagine, come back. I know us as my family, we didn't just move once, we moved several times. So you get it that this is more of a relationship you're trying to build. This is just not a transaction one-time thing, right?
Correct. Well, think back to those 7 people who moved you. I won't put you on the spot here, but I bet the odds are pretty high you don't know the name of all 7 of those folks that you hired.
Definitely not.
But if you look back at your bank account, you'll see you spent a lot of money with them. Imagine another, you probably remember the name of the restaurant you had lunch at this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
A good meal. You can tell right off the bat the name of that restaurant. But in this business, you spend thousands of dollars with a moving company, and you don't even know who you paid money towards. You forget that name immediately because there's no relationship. It's all transaction.
Yeah, no, you're right. Okay, so before we go back to your past, because this is not your first rodeo in franchising, you've been a successful franchisor in the past. We're going to get to that in a minute. But I do want to ask you, how did Pink Zebra get started? How did the whole thing come to be?
So I know we said we're going to talk about my previous brand before, at some point, but I've got to at least talk a little bit about it now because that was part of the evolution or the origination, I should say, of the Pink Zebra moving brand. So I had built a strong brand into almost 100 locations, and I was living that, the CEO life, and that was a long way from startup life, 20 years earlier. And on the surface, things were looking really good. Thousands of employees across the network, revenue soaring. Even through COVID, we were doing great. On the surface, everything was good. There was one data point, one KPI that crossed my desk that really scared me, though. It was what we called customer attrition. There we had a lot of recurring revenue, a little bit different here on the moving side, but we did have a lot of recurring revenue there. And so when we measured customer attrition, I noticed a negative trend across the board. We were losing more customers historically than we'd ever lost before. Meanwhile, we were just booking more jobs than we had ever booked in the past. And so revenue was soaring because the discrepancy was not large enough for there to be a huge negative impact to the business. But I was worried what happens when the demand does slow, this attrition problem rise up, and then all of a sudden we're hit in the face with it. So I stood in front of our 90 plus franchisees in a conference, and I said, hey, your revenue is stronger than it's ever been before. You're making more money than you've ever made in your life. Things are really good for the brand. We were at the time the number 3 cleaning brand in the country, but we got a problem. And so they thought I was crazy, and I told them what I wanted to do about it. I wanted to change how we provided the experience to our customers there. And quite frankly, the response was not positive. People were like, get off my porch. I'm making money. And you want me to tell me I got to invest to make more money? Things are good.
It went over like a lead balloon, didn't it?
Yeah. So
I get it.
So all these emotions are circulating. I'm CEO life, which again, I don't know if I loved that. Startup life, I really did love. I had franchisees not agreeing with my theories. And then all of a sudden, my mother-in-law hired a moving company. And when she hired the moving company, she called me and she said, who should I hire? I remember telling her, hire the cheapest one, because the cheapest one was $800. The other company was $1,900. So I said, even if they're 100% off, they're cheaper than the other company. I didn't know anything about moving, and so she hired the $800 moving company. It was horrible. The experience was terrible. Broken items, poor customer service. They arrived late. They were very rude. They took way too long. It was a mess. They scuffed her walls, all these other bad things. On top of all that, I was wrong. It wasn't 100% more. It was actually 300% more of the final price. So she ended up paying almost $3,000 for a move that she thought was going to take $800. And they had her stuff. They kind of held her hostage and said, you got to pay this. And so all that was happening. And when it happened, she said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a really nasty review. That'll get them. And my entrepreneurial mind was thinking, well, what else can we do? And so I said, I kind of knew the industry just from home service franchising, all the other guys in the industry. And so about that time, I said, I see what they're doing, some of the big guys in this industry. I see what type of problems exist with this industry because you lived it firsthand. I'm not necessarily in love with CEO life, and people don't want to do the CX stuff. So why don't I build a brand around in this moving industry and attack it using a positive, much more better customer experience? And so that is what prompted me to exit Two Maids, sell that business, and then start a moving business from the ground up with just one location.
Wow. Okay. So how long did you run the Two Maids franchise system for?
So almost 20 years, 19 and a half years. It's crazy. So I started in Florida, Pensacola, Florida, with one location in 2003. We lost money every single day for the next 2 years. And it was a tough ride. I had self-financed everything. So we were running tight for a little bit there.
I knew we had stuff in common. I knew that. We have a lot in common, as it turns out.
Yeah, when I work hard, I'm passionate, I believe in everything I'm doing, but if you don't have any capital, there's not much you can do with all that passion and hard work, And so that was the life I was living there toward the end of that 2 years. We caught on to some fire. Basically, we created what we called the pay for performance plan at Two Maids, which is pretty simple. We would ask our customers to rate their level of satisfaction on a pretty simple scale of just 1 to 10. That number would directly determine the employee's wages. And so we created that for two reasons. One, we needed some motivational tools for our employees across the network, but we also needed something that said we're different. We really didn't say we were different. We were just another cleaning company. And so this allowed us to be a little bit different, this pay for performance plan. When we started talking about that in our sales pitches to customers, we started booking customers left and right. It just exploded. And so we started opening a second location, a third location, all the way until we had 12 corporate locations, again, across the Southeast. Everybody said, you should franchise. And I was like, I don't know. I'm a little scared of that because what if franchisees don't like me? You've heard those combative relationships that sometimes franchisees can have with franchisors.
Sure.
I had met some of those folks, and I didn't really want that in our system. I wanted everybody's success to be recognized and celebrated together. I wanted us to be a family. And so I went to a franchise conference. I just said, you know what, I'm going to try to learn something about it because everybody tells me I should do it. And you won't believe this story, but I was randomly in the right place at the right time. I met Fred DeLuca, of all people, in a hotel lobby.
And Fred DeLuca is the founder of Subway. We should let the audience know, for those that don't know who Fred is. Fred was.
He founded Subway. He was by himself. He said, I've got the whole afternoon. Let's talk.
Wow.
So
what year is this, Ron? What year was this?
Oh, gosh. This was 07 or 08, somewhere around there.
Wow.
And he actually passed away a few years after that. But he gave me that afternoon along with several. We Zoomed before Zooming was cool. I think, what was it called? Not Zoom, but whatever. We used a different technology at that time to talk like we're doing now. But we spent several weeks after that conference just talking franchising. He invited me to the headquarters there, and I walked the halls, and I learned that you can be a good franchisor through him, and used that experience to eventually decide to franchise the brand. It took us a while to understand all the stuff you needed to do to become a good franchisor. We made a lot of mistakes early on. One of the reasons I'm excited about Pink Zebra is being my act two is I've already made the mistakes that an early franchisor makes. I've awarded too big of territories. Our second territory we sold. Yeah, you'll love this one. So the second territory we sold was all of DC. I'm talking Northern Virginia, Maryland into DC proper. One group. Thankfully, they have been amazing. They've opened multiple locations, but we didn't necessarily have the contractual obligations built into the agreement for them to do that. And so we had to learn a hard lesson there, not knowing we had some legacy vendors that had helped us build our corporate stores, but they weren't really able to scale across the country because we were all in the Southeast. And so finding the right vendors was a real challenge early on. How to train and support someone that had never been in the cleaning business before was something that we also encountered as a real challenge early on. And then just finding the people to do those jobs, all the people inside the corporate office. We're in Birmingham, Alabama, not necessarily a hotbed of franchising. And so most of the people we were interviewing didn't know anything about franchising, and we didn't really either, so we were learning all this stuff together. And so it took us a while. It took us about 2 years to really franchise the brand and start actually offering it as an opportunity. We converted 11 of those 12 corporate stores into franchises, and then we sold 2 franchises over the next 2 years. And then that third year, we sold 24, and the rest is history because we just kept selling anywhere from 10 to 20 per year for the next several years until they're still going strong now, but until I exited.
Wow.
It was a heck of a ride. When you look back on it, it's easy to talk about, but it's crazy to think about because took a lot of fortune, some good luck, but a ton of hard work. I was so much sacrifice went into the early days, but equally as much sacrifice when we started franchising, because when someone pays you, it's probably their investment of a lifetime. There's so much pressure on you as the franchisor to make sure they make money on that. You don't want anyone to lose money.
Of course.
It feels personal. You feel like you own the business with them.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to mention that it sounds like based on when you started and how you were growing, a lot of these franchises that you sold were awarded like right during or right as the Great Recession was still on. So you were able to battle through the Great Recession and keep growing.
Yeah. Once we understood how to develop, we didn't really, probably, I don't know if this was your story, but the first franchise development person we had on staff was me.
Me too.
And
yes.
So, I was flying into people's homes on Saturday morning to talk about this franchise opportunity. We didn't have all the technology even we have now, but telephone calls, I didn't have a process, and so I was also didn't really know how to find people. Once we understood a little bit more about how to find qualified franchise candidates, I pulled myself out of the sales role and we brought a friend dev team in, and then everything became very much processed at that point. And you didn't have to be the world's best salesperson. You just had to follow the process and it worked. So finding qualified candidates, we worked with the broker networks that worked really well for us. And then, of course, having the right friend dev team to know how to communicate and educate our business model and franchise opportunity was step two.
So you would agree then, starting out as a new franchisor, that if the founder has sales skills, there's a great benefit to you being the person as the franchise development contact.
No doubt. I mean, you have other obligations, so it's definitely difficult.
Oh
because
yeah.
a full-time salesperson is just selling. You're not going to be able to do it all day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some complications if you have a large lead flow of franchise candidates. But for me, I wanted to meet the people. I wanted to show my passion and my belief in the model. I'm doing the same thing here at Pink Zebra. We have, with the exit, thankfully, we have the capital to do a lot of things here. But I've chosen to be the franchise development person, at least for now, because I want to talk to every single franchise candidate. For this business model to work in this industry, we need system, we need process. It's what every franchise brand needs. It's going to be successful, but we need a strong culture that's led by the ownership in that local market. If you don't believe the customer experience is the way for us to separate ourselves, then a manual is not going to do it for you. You've got to believe it in your heart and your brain, and then communicate that same belief with your employees, and then the rest kind of takes care of itself. So for us to find those people, the right people, probably means we don't grow quick. We don't necessarily win awards. We won't sell 100 territories this year. We're on pace to what we think, 5 to 10 deals per year. But that also means I get to personally get involved in that process and give the brand the best opportunity to bring in what I call the forefathers of the brand. Like these folks that we're bringing in right now, people years from now are going to look to them for direction. They're going to look at them and say, hey, you were successful. How did you do it? You've been around for 5 years and kick and tell. How'd you do it? If we bring in the wrong people right now and they're not successful, they're going to tell the wrong message, from years from now. And it's going to be harder for the future franchisees to believe in the system.
Oh yeah. Those first dozen franchisees could make or break your system based on the culture. Wouldn't you agree? First of all, tell me, how did you, let's go back to how many franchise locations does Pink Zebra have now?
Yeah, we have 10 open.
Okay.
Most of those are in the Southeast again, because we're still located in Birmingham. We have 8 in the Southeast. And we have a couple others. We have one in Oklahoma City, and then another opening in Denver, Colorado. So we're very excited about that one. That's going to be our first non-South location. And we have a lot of people interested right now. So many people, it's hard to keep up with, honestly, because people are pretty excited about what we're doing. They know the industry is strong, tons of demand out there, big tickets like I've talked about. And they also know that very few people, if any, have done anything to attack it, to disrupt it. So there's a lot of excitement out there, and we've turned people away. That's a hard thing to do, but we've had to turn a few people away that looked at this investment the wrong way. So that's a difficult thing to do as a young franchise brand. But I feel like it's important to the future success of us.
Oh yeah, that is not a rookie mistake right there by yourself. You know better. You've been there before. I know I've been there before. When you're first starting out, you want to sell franchises and you don't know what the right person looks and sounds like. You just don't know those traits, but after you've been around the block for a while, you can kind of pick up on that. And we also, like I said earlier, you know that those first franchisees really established that foundation. I know a question that probably a lot of emerging franchisors would have hearing your story is, how did you find that first, 10 franchises?
So here is a little different than there. So at Two Maids, we initially did not work with broker networks because we thought we were so attractive that everybody would just find us. And it took us a little bit over a year to figure out it's not quite that simple. So once we started working with some selective broker networks, we were able to attract a much more qualified candidate. It really changed the game for us. Here, we already knew that. And so we went straight to the broker networks, and that's who we exclusively, all of our leads come from brokers at this point. And what we get from, we get someone's got to want to be in the home services space. Someone's got to meet a certain investment criteria. But most importantly, someone's got to really understand that this is not just going to be a paper investment. And we tell them that. You're not going to necessarily have to be there every day. Certainly not going to have to move anything. You're not providing manual labor, but you are going to have to do more than just consider this a stock investment. This is not real estate. This is not a stock market investment. This is an active ownership position. You're going to invest 10 to 20 hours a week, unless you want to be an owner operator, and we do have a few of those, but that's not necessarily for everybody. A lot of people confuse franchising with the word easy. I think it's easier with a franchise system, but I don't think it's easy. And so we tell that to people, like, you're going to have to put some legwork into this business. And some people are okay with that. Some people are like, I don't know, I think I want another model that doesn't require as much of my time, which is always interesting to me, because why not just invest in a home or something, But when you own a franchise at Pink Zebra, we do expect our owners to do more than read reports and write checks.
Sure. What would you say are some of the most valuable traits that you have found from your successful franchise owners in this business and in Two Maids? What are some of the most valuable traits a franchisee has that you think they're the ones that are going to be successful?
So probably the same thing you already know, like the more involved in the business, the better. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you a great example. This happened at Two Maids years ago, and I was traveling. We had a really fast growing store in Virginia Beach, and they were just barely open, but they were already just kicking everybody's tail. Like, they had exceeded all revenue marks that we didn't even think were possible for a brand new business, but they were doing it. And it was a semi-absentee owned model. So the owner wasn't there every day. So I said, I'm coming up. I gotta spend a day with you. I gotta see what's going on here, because you got some magic. So I'm in there, and the owner is present. Apparently, he would show up every day for what we call a morning meeting, where you meet everybody and then they go do the work, right? 15 minutes long, it's nothing. But in that meeting, as it was finished, the owner talked to there was about 12 employees there at the time. Each one of those 12 people he talked about, and I'm like, hey, how was your date last night? How's your mom doing? I know she didn't feel well yesterday, and all these other personal stories. That told me that he knew these people, and they knew him, and they felt that. After they left, he started talking to his manager about customers, and he starts talking about the craziest things, like, hey, don't forget, she likes her pillow on the left side instead of the right side of the couch, and all these really small details, even though he wasn't in the office every single day. And so that following day, I visited one of our poorer performing stores for the opposite reason. I was concerned because they weren't growing the way we expected them to, and I wanted to figure out why. Same thing, some absentee business. So we communicate. I say, I'm going to be there for the morning meeting, whatever, just like the day before Virginia Beach. So when I get there, the owner's not there. The manager's calling, I'm calling, we're texting, like, where is this guy? He never showed. So we said, girls, you got to go. No, I don't know what's going on. We'll talk about it later. Just go do your job. And about an hour later, the manager showed up, had a big grin on his face, and had two hands of biscuits, and each hand was a bunch of like sausage biscuits or whatever for breakfast. And he was very excited, and he looked around and he said, where is everybody? I've got breakfast for everybody. And we was like, they've been gone for an hour. He said, oh my gosh, I thought we started at 9. I didn't know we started at 8. He had owned that business for a year. And so I had some tough conversations with him and really try to challenge him to change how he was owning this business and how he's managing his people. And he did it. It took a while, but over time, the business started growing and growing. It's doing great. As far as I know, it's still doing great. All that said, the more involved the owner can be, meaning, yes, you're going to know KPIs, you're going to know certain revenue marks, and you're going to know what payroll is. But the more you can know about the people of your business, both the customers and the employees, I feel like that's really the secret. If you can know who these people are, besides just, an invoice or just someone on your payroll, then it's going to be better for you as the owner and for the business.
Mm-hmm. And likewise for the franchisor too. This same goes for us here in the corporate office and the franchisor having that same relationship with the franchisees, to know them, to know their likes, dislikes, what makes them tick, their family life, what their background is. That same thing applies. What would you say are some other maybe common mistakes new franchisors make? Because I know that's one of them. They don't really put the time into maybe really getting to know their franchisee, but what are some other things?
So we had come from a world where we had corporate stores, right? And at Two Maids. And so we had a training system. We said, here's how you do it. Here are the keys. We're leaving, go execute. So we said, well, that same thing applies with our new franchisees. And so our first franchise was in Tampa, Florida. And we went out there for a week. I was there personally with them and said, go. And thought that was all you needed, because, that's what life we had lived before. And very quickly, things got out of control because we didn't have enough oversight over things like marketing, for instance. We had a marketing program that we had always managed ourselves for our corporate stores, but now that we were franchising, we had to rely on our franchisees to execute that same marketing strategy. Well, over the course of about 2 months, that local franchise said, nope, we're going to do it differently. This is how you do it. Your way is wrong. And of course, things went haywire on them. Business wasn't booming and revenue wasn't what they expected. And when we discovered it, it was 2 months later that they had totally changed everything about our marketing strategy. And so we had to figure out a way to bring that more in-house so that we could have more control. Eventually, we built our own in-house marketing agency. But that was one example, just not having enough oversight on if the franchisee is performing the systems and executing the systems properly. And then what happens when they don't? We weren't prepared for that type of conversation when a franchisee says, no, I'm not going to do that system, even though that's in the manual. I don't agree with it. We just didn't expect that to happen. So we had to learn the hard way of how to get in front of that, how to deal with that when it did occur. Sometimes you have to have some tough love, in other cases, you can take the more carrot approach. But that to me was probably our biggest learning lesson, just not having enough oversight over our systems. Once we started franchising early on, a lot of people wanted to do it their way. And we just sort of didn't want to be the bad guy, and we let them do it. And of course, over time, they would figure out that it was the wrong way, in most cases. Now, it wasn't always the case, but there were some situations where their ideas were valued, and we actually implemented some of them. But in most cases, they were the wrong decisions. We were the ones with 10 years. We had 10 years of experience in the industry before we ever franchised the brand. So we'd been through it all. We'd seen it all. So that's what I would advise any new franchisor is be prepared. What's going to happen when a system is not followed? How are you going to deal with that? How are you going to know even if it's not being executed properly? Have that oversight in place on day one.
Yeah, I think also new franchisors need to understand that their franchisees initially, the first 10 are going to look different as opposed to franchisee number 100. Your first 10, in order for them, look, if I'm going to buy a Pink Zebra franchise and I'm number 1, I must be a bit of a risk taker. My expectations are I'm going to be involved a little bit. I might have some decision making. I may have some autonomy, and there's a little bit of leeway. There's probably aren't all these rules and systems and processes where if I'm franchisee number 100, the only reason why I bought your franchise is because you sold 99 first. So I assume you really have everything together. So as a new franchisor, you have to understand that your first 10, first 20 are going to look a little different as you continue to grow. But that's the reality, right, Ron?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, even here at Pink Zebra Moving, we have some more most of our early franchisees are very entrepreneurial on purpose. Like you said, we want those folks to actually challenge us a little bit more.
Yes.
We get some good ideas from those conversations. We want to test some new things, and you've got to have a franchisee willing to experiment if we want to test some things. And so we look for, you said it, 12. Like our magic number is closer to 15. But these first 15 franchisees that we're bringing in, we want them to be a little bit of an entrepreneurial type mindset, which if you go to any franchise conference, they're going to tell you a franchisee is not an entrepreneur. But I do believe that those first 15 need to be, and so they're
going to be.
They're going to all.
They are
right.
going to be, even though it creates a challenge. But the power of franchising is the push-pull relationship. We are all rowing in the same direction, right? Franchisor and franchisee alike. But there is just it's inherently part of franchising where you do have this push-pull, but that is the power of your brand. That's what makes the organization tick and grow. It's we challenge each other. We have a mutual respect. We're not going to agree on everything, but we do at the end of the day have to agree that this is the direction that we're going to row in, and we need everybody on board, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's the essence of franchising. You want success for everyone. You want everybody to be happy for the success. You don't want to look at your royalty check and say, ugh, that was a complete waste of money, So as a franchisor, you have to evolve and grow. Early on, we're heavy, like in the moving industry right now, every franchisee we've brought in has zero experience in this industry. Nobody, other than from a customer perspective, no one's ever driven a moving truck, much less owned a moving company. So it's all new to them. And so we're heavy on the trade right now. We're talking how to load trucks and how to separate this dolly from that dolly and so on. That's not going to always be the case. A year from now, 2 years from now, we're going to have to start talking more business analytics and get away from the dolly talk. We know that's coming. We love that already. But right now, it's heavy. How do you hire the right guys? How do you train these guys? I got a grand piano to move tomorrow. How do you do it? At some point, that's back of hand stuff. And
right.
The business support that we provide will have to change.
Well, let me ask you this. When do you know, as the founder, when you can scale more quickly? Is there a couple of trigger points for you that say, yeah, we can pick this up and accelerate?
So we have, I'm a little biased, but I feel like we have the opportunity here to go big quick if we wanted to. We've chosen to go smaller. We're again, it may change later, but right now, 5 to 10 a year is really our wheelhouse. Because one, I want to hire the right people internally to make sure that we provide the best support. If I grow fast, I'm going to have to go and hire very quickly, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to hire the right people that quickly. And so that's one of the issues. The other is I want to give our early franchisees real attention. If we go out and we sell 100 territories in a year, our franchisees are not going to have a personal relationship with us, in my opinion. And so I want to have a personal relationship with every one of our early franchisees. And to do that, you got to grow slower, And so we're only working with exclusive broker networks right now because of that. We've been told many times if we want to grow faster, there's a way to do it. But right now, this is the strategy that seems right for us because, again, when I look down the road 5-10 years from now, this part of our 5-10 years from now doesn't happen unless we're successful right now. Selling franchises is only half the solution. You got to have successful franchises as well. Maybe there's ways to do it if you've got a strong system inside internally. But again, I don't want to go out and hire 30 people very quickly just because we sold 100 territories. That's my strategy, at least.
I love it. I hope that aspiring franchisors are hearing this episode and specifically took note to what you just said. I can't tell you the number of people I've spoken to that are aspiring franchisors over the years that are motivated by opening as many locations because of the amount of feedback they're getting from people that say, I want to own one of these. I just recently ran into a lady she has a very successful pet business, and her customers are seeing the flood of people that come into her business. And she has quickly accumulated probably 20 to 30 people that are saying, I want to open one of these. I'm not going to give away any details about her business, but she's feeling like almost pressure to going into franchising because of outside pressure of people saying, I want to buy one of these. Is that the right thing for her? Should she franchise because of outside pressure from people that want to own one?
Yeah, I mean, I would, you've got to want to grow, so she's got to understand why do you want to grow? It's going to change everything about her life. Number one, she probably really loves the pet business. I never really loved the cleaning business, but certain industries, founders really love their industry. But once you start franchising, you're no longer in that industry. You're in the franchise industry, whether you sell sandwiches or moving services, you're in the franchise industry. And so what that means is you're going to be doing different things. You're going to be talking about contracts. You're going to be talking about how to train people, business coaching, all the things we've been talking about. Very little about the trade, the thing that the product or service that you sell. So she's got to think about that. For me, the mentors that I talked to early on in my franchise discovery process were the right people. So while outside forces can sometimes tell you the wrong thing, if you find the right people, they can tell you the right thing. And so I could not have done this without Fred's mentorship. I wouldn't have even done it. There were other people in the franchise space that were very supportive of me and gave me their time. Couldn't be here without those guys, And so I would recommend people talk to people that have been in this space for a long time. We're very open. This industry is very small. You pretty much know everyone once you're in it. So seek out those folks, and they'll tell you. Like now, I love telling my story and talking about some of the mistakes I made so that people can avoid them in their own life.
Yeah. So tell me about how many people are on your corporate team. What makes this machine tick?
Yeah. So we have 7 people right now. So we've again chosen. We brought a few people from our Two Maids days over. I was fortunate to be able to transition them over to Pink Zebra, and so they know the industry. They know me. It's my vision and all the things that I like and dislike. And so that's been very helpful. And then we've slowly brought in people that we think are superstars. We don't want to just hire because we have a void. We want to find the right people. So with 7 people, we're able to do the things we do, 5 to 10 new locations per year. We will grow, obviously. That will not always be the case. But right now, the group of 7 we have are what I call all-stars, and they get the job done. And our wheelhouse is, again, somewhere in that 7 to 8 per year growth.
Slow and steady wins the race, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Now, again, there will be a time, just like in Two Maids, where we turn the switch on.
Yeah.
And we can sell more, and we will want to sell more. We're just probably another year from that. We need the rest of this year and probably next year to get those guys open, have success. What I want is a franchise candidate 3 years from now to call one of the guys that we're opening right now, and I want them to hear amazing things like, "Oh my gosh, this was the best decision of my life. I'm making money. My personal life has improved because of it. The training and support these guys give me are amazing. I couldn't do it without them." Like all of those type of conversations, I think will occur if we're slow and steady right now. But if we go out and go crazy real quickly, you may not hear that. You may hear something negative, and that slows you down later. So I've chosen to say we're going to hit overdrive a few years from now, but we need this foundation to get there.
And for validation purposes, somebody that's interested in buying a franchise is going to call on your existing franchisees. So they've got to be able to share, why to do this. And that's why it's so key to go slow and steady and making sure that we have that great validation, right?
Yeah. All it takes, you can talk to 5, let's say they call 7, 8, I don't know how many franchisees, right? You're in the validation phase. The question they're all going to ask is, would you do it again? I mean, that's the most common question I think people usually ask when they're talking to a franchise owner. If the answer is no, it doesn't really matter what the other 5 people say. So maybe the other 5 people say, absolutely, I would do this again. I'm making money. But they heard the one negative thing, and so there's no way to be perfect. I understand that. But I feel like if we can be slow now, that gives us the best chance for those amazing stories to happen. And that's what we're trying to do for our customers. We're trying to create amazing stories. And the same thing we're trying to do for our franchisees. I want there to be amazing stories from now, 3 to 4 years from now. We've got, like back at Two Maids, there's that DC couple that I just talked to you about. They have since opened, I believe, 9 locations all the way down to South Carolina. And they travel the world. They homeschool their 2 kids. They literally travel the world while they're doing that. And I see all their photos on Facebook, so it makes me so happy inside, because I remember when I first met them, they wanted their life to be better. They were stuck in jobs they didn't like, and they were looking for an escape, and the dream of business ownership was what was going to do that. And it's happened over the course of 5 years. Their life has changed much for the better, making probably a lot of money and living the life they want with their children.
That's awesome. Tell me, what is your vision? How big is big for Pink Zebra?
So our ultimate vision, we call ourselves the world's first happy moving company. And so ultimately, we want this industry to be changed. We want to create a whole new category of what we call happy movers. And we hope that one day down the road, a customer will go, hey, did you hire one of those old school movers, or did you hire one of those happy movers? That's going to come from us, what we're doing right now. We're the pioneer of the happy moving experience. And so to do that, you've got to open locations. You can only, if we were in 10 locations, that's not going to change an industry, And so our growth strategy is twofold. One, disrupt this industry, create a new category, but open locations as well. So we believe that we have an opportunity to open as many as 200 plus locations across this country, maybe even closer to 300. Right now we're at 10. So we got a lot of growth in front of us. For the next year and a half or so, we're looking at 7 to 8 to 9 or 10 new locations per year. But come 25, we do expect to hit the go button, and we'll see what happens there. So our hope is to get to 200 plus open locations, probably around 500 to 600 territories will be sold at that point.
Wow. This is going to be really fun to watch. The first happy moving company. So did you think we were going to get through the whole podcast without me asking the name Pink Zebra? I mean, come on. Tell us about it. How did you come up with the name?
Yeah, so it's an ode to my favorite book. There's a book by a guy named Seth Godin called The Purple Cow. You ever read?
I remember that. Yeah.
So it's probably 20 years old now, but it's a great book. Simple philosophy. If you see a pasture of cows, they all look the same. They're not remarkable. They're not memorable. But if one of those was purple, then it would be memorable. You'd remember it the rest of your life more than likely, and you see yourself in that car when you pass that pasture. Same thing goes in business. You've got to have a unique niche. You've got to be different than the rest of the people in your marketplace. And that's a purple cow. Now, in our case, we've chosen to create a better, more positive customer experience. That's our purple cow. And so when I built the business model, we didn't really have a name for the business yet. So I said, well, what can we do to make an ode to that philosophy, the purple cow philosophy? And so we already had fell in love with the color pink because I'd been pink for 20 years back at Two Maids. And so we went with Pink Zebra because it just sort of stuck out. You should see our trucks. They're hard to miss. There's, of course, pink and white zebra stripes from back to front. We get a lot of looks on the highways.
I bet. I love it. What has been your biggest surprise? You've been in franchising really for 20 years. Tell us, what is that?
The biggest surprise would be the type of people who want to, in our case, we're home services, both Two Maids and here at Pink Zebra, we're in the moving industry, obviously. No one is in love with cleaning. No one is in love with moving. So most of the people all the people that we bring in have no moving or cleaning industry experience. And so these guys are accountants, some are doctors, they're professional salespeople, you name it, teachers in some cases. We had a music teacher at Two Maids who kicked tail, and he had never even once thought about owning a business. He loved music that much. And so the surprise to me is just how amazing it is to bring someone that has a little bit of fear of opening a business because they're not an entrepreneur typically. And so that's why they chose franchising. But you're able to take that music teacher and build them into a real life entrepreneur, and you see their life change. I've seen that music teacher, for instance, open multiple locations now from Colorado to Missouri at Two Maids. That's what's so amazing to me and surprising, that you don't have to be a great cook to own a restaurant franchise. You don't have to be a great mover to own a Pink Zebra moving franchise.
That's the power of franchising, right? Is we get to bring people in with, and by bringing people in with different backgrounds, they're bringing that, their history, their skill set into your network, where, as I would say, I could have never afforded them as an employee. Yet that's harnessing franchising right there by having those folks come in. They have skin in the game. They have they have a history. They have all different backgrounds.
Yeah, it's fun to see. Makes me a proud papa.
Oh, that's fantastic. Tell me, what advice would you give to somebody that was interested in becoming a Pink Zebra franchise owner?
Yeah. So number one, you should visit our website. It tells all sorts of great stories and more information. You can learn a little bit more about the investment expectations, pinkzebramoving.com. You can reach out to us. You're probably going to talk to me if you're we do have a contracted franchise development team that talks to some people, but in high level of confidence that you'll get to me pretty quickly because I'm so involved in the franchise development process right now. So yeah, you could reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn, Ron Holt, easy to find. Or again, you can go straight to our website, pinkzebramovingfranchise.com.
Wow. Ron, thank you so much for being on the show. You are fantastic. I love not only giving us the background, your background story, but sharing with us your why and why you have focused on growing slow and steady and the importance of that. I think whether you're a potential Pink Zebra franchisee, you've given them a reason to really believe in why this is such a solid brand. And also for an aspiring franchisor, I hope they listened, because you really had some great gold that you dropped on us today for those folks if they're going to get involved in franchising their business.
Well, I'm so proud to hear you say that and honored. You've got your own amazing story as well, and so I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk with you and meet with you.
Thanks, Ron. Well, I wish you all the best. Thanks again.
You bet. Same to you.
All right. Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.